Hey, what's up everyone? Today I'm going to try to make a very classic Chinese dish. It is bo jai fans, or a clay pot rice. So for this clay pot dish, I'm going to teach you how to make a spare rib with black bean sauce, as well as lapchung, which is Chinese sausage. These two are a great combination. The fat from the pork and the lapchung is going to get into the rice, as well as the sauce, and it's just going to be like a total flavor explosion. So here are the main ingredients for the clay pot rice. I'll get to the sauce, which is very, very important later on. So we have here my clay pot, and in this clay pot is 1.5 cups of rice, which I already washed. You have to wash it, really important. You have to take out as much of the starch as possible. This way the grains aren't so sticky and your rice will be nice and fluffy. Now in this bowl is 1.5 cups of rice, which would serve about like 2 people, but I wouldn't go any more than that. But I can eat all this by myself, because you know, I'm an animal. And 1 piece of lapchung, Chinese sausage. Make sure that your Chinese sausage is fatty, because I know that they do sell a leaner version of Chinese sausage, which is like sacrilege, you know. But anyways, you want a fatty piece of sausage, because when it cooks inside this clay pot, the fat is gonna render into the rice. So yummy times, right? And then here is 200 grams of spare ribs. Again, make sure that you get a nice, you know, not too fat, okay, but not too lean spare ribs. And then right here is a tablespoon of daoxi. This is salted fermented black beans. I soaked it in some water because you want to just soften it up and sort of just remove the salt as well, because you want most of the sodium to come from the sauces and the marinades that I'm going to put into this spare ribs. And then the all important ginger. This is a 1/2 inch nub of ginger, some garlic. Use as much as you want, use as little as you want. I have here about 1, 2, 3, 4, about 5 like medium-sized cloves. And then you need some nuclear missiles. You don't need to add chilies if you want, but if you do want to add chilies and you can't handle the heat, just get bigger ones. I just like these little small spicy ones. So for those watching, if you're not familiar with bo jai fans or clay pot rice, this stuff is served like all over Asia, but I am particularly fond of the bo jai fans I see in Hong Kong and in Malaysia. So first thing to do is to explain a little bit about the clay pots, okay? Because there are 2 types. This one is the traditional clay pots that I've seen in most Asian households, including mine. These were used during ancient times, so you know, I think for me sometimes it's good to, you know, sort of use stuff that, you know, our parents used or past generations used. You know, it's just a sentimental thing for cooks to do, I guess, right? Now for me, this type of clay pot isn't really ideal for a gas range. As I said, this is like basically ancient technology, and they cook these over coal. And for my next video, I'm gonna be using this at my mother-in-law's place, where she has more space where I can use coal, and it's gonna be a lot of fire, a lot of, you know, smoke. So a lot of the charcoal flavor is gonna permeate this bowl and get into the rice and all the ingredients that is being cooked inside this clay pot. While this clay pot is glazed already, so it is more ideal for gas range. Now, if you're a beginning cook and you want to, you know, learn how to cook Chinese food or basically any other food, I recommend that you should use a clay pot. Actually learn cooking by using clay pots, because you know, in cooking, you don't really hear people teach so much about this, but in cooking, it's not just the ingredients, it's not just technique or skill. It's also about how you use fire. Fire is an important key element of cooking foods. For example, scrambled eggs, you want soft, fluffy scrambled eggs, you gotta use low heat, right? If you want a nice, big, juicy, thick steak that has a nice crust on the outside, you cook it on high flames, right? But you can't leave it on a high flame too long, because you gotta cook the inside or else the outside burns too fast. So you gotta move the steak to a lower flame so that inside cooks internally. So fire and how you use heat is fundamental in being a good cook. That is one thing. If you're gonna learn one thing for this new year, that is it. Okay, so let's start marinating the pork, because you need to marinate the pork for at least an hour, ideally overnight. First, I drained off the daoxi and I'm just going to just chop it up. Doesn't need to be too fine, all right? Because you still want to see some chunks of daoxi. Okay, that's enough. Just like that. This stuff smells like childhood. Well, Asian household childhood. All right, and then we need some garlic. I'm gonna use all of this garlic. I know it's a lot of garlic, but again, this garlic is gonna flavor the rice. This type of dish is more popular during the winter times because, for one thing, the shop is warm because they use charcoal to cook up like a whole roll of clay pot rice. So you're staying warm and you're also getting comfort food, which is what this really is. Because, and it's a shame that most Asian households, they don't really make this anymore. But I'm going to show you that there's no reason why you shouldn't be making this at home because it's really easy and simple and kind of hard to screw up. Okay. A lot of garlic and just a small nub of ginger. Just take off the skin and just give the ginger a fine mince. And I realized that people cannot, use a charcoal inside their homes, but even then, just get a nice glazed clay pot and cook it on your gas range. And I'm pretty sure people in your family will appreciate it and like the food that comes out of it. A tablespoon of light soy sauce. A teaspoon of pure sesame oil. And a tablespoon of Chinese cooking wine. I know it's strong, but hey, you know what? This dish benefits from it. You don't want to be too weak on the flavor department on this one. And just a large dash of ground white pepper. I think this is about half a teaspoon. And finally, 2 teaspoons of oyster sauce, whole yao. That's 1. And that's 2. All right, and then we just mix this all up really well. So I tend to over season my spare ribs, particularly for this dish, because you think about it, all of the seasonings that I put into this dish, into this pork, the garlic, the ginger, the sauces, and especially the fat from this pork, as it cooks and steams in this clay pot rice, all these flavors is gonna sort of meld into the rice. And everything in the world will feel just right when you bite into this. All right, so I completely mix this up. So now it's time to drop in 2 tablespoons of corn flour. This corn flour is gonna give the pork a sort of like a silky texture. And because cornstarch is a thickener, it's also gonna help make this little, just a really slight, small little gravy. Oh, I forgot to add sugar. I am such an idiot sometimes. About 2 teaspoons of sugar. That's enough. Not too late to mix it in, okay? So not end of the world. Marinate this for at least an hour in the refrigerator. Meanwhile, I'm just gonna prepare the other ingredients. This is the lapchung. I'm just gonna cut it into little pretty diagonal shapes. And Chinese sausage, they're like just absolute flavor bombs, especially when you eat it with a nice bowl of steaming white rice. It's salty and it's sweet. And then just chop up some spring onions. These go in towards the end, as well as my little chilies. Now there's also a sauce, right? The sauce is just a combination of soy sauce, which I'm gonna put in a tablespoon. Just a hit of oyster sauce, about a teaspoon, like that. And then you need some sweet soy sauce. This is 2 teaspoons of sweet soy sauce. And a teaspoon of pure sesame oil. Like a 1/4 teaspoon of vinegar. I'm using rice vinegar here. Now all the shops in Hong Kong, Malaysia, they have their own special sauce mix formula, and it is all secret. But for me personally, I don't really like to add too much sauce into my clay pot rice dish, because usually whatever proteins that are in it, they're marinated with plenty of sauce already, and so I don't really like to drown my clay pot rice with too much sauce. And if you're the type that like to use a lot of sauce, you can easily double it. So, but this is just enough for the amount of clay pot rice that I'm making. So first thing to do is to cook the rice. I'm gonna season the rice a little bit with just a 1/2 teaspoon of pure sesame oil. And I'm gonna set my fire on a medium-high heat. Pop on the lid, and I'm gonna wait for the water to reduce. This type of cooking is quite fast. It should take about maybe like 6 or so minutes. So once the water reduces in the pot, I'm gonna start adding in the main ingredients. All right, so it's been about 3 or 4 minutes. As you can see, my rice is nicely cooking away. There's still some water left. And the thing about cooking with clay pots is you have to use your senses, not only your eyes. You have to also use your sense of smell. These clay pot dishes, they're popular because because when you cook it, it forms a crust on the bottom of the bowl. Anybody who eats a lot of clay pot rice knows that the best bits of the clay pot rice is on the bottom of the bowl, where it builds, where there's a nice little crust that the rice is a little bit hard, but it's still edible, and it just has a little flavor. You can call it umami if you want, but that's why a lot of people fall in love with cooking with clay pots, is because these cooking utensils help develop more flavor than the average pans that we normally use in our house. All right, so it's been another 2 minutes. I'm gonna check on it. Okay. I'm gonna lower the heat. You saw how fast it started cooking, right? I'm gonna drop in my spare ribs. I actually should have dropped in my ingredients into this rice sooner, but I got distracted. Put in my chilies. And I'm gonna let this steam for about 5 minutes on a low heat. Once you drop in the proteins, it's kind of important that you don't lift up the lid because you really want to retain all that heat and all that flavors within the bowl. All right, I'm gonna switch the heat off. Let's take a look. Oh, it's really hot. Whoa, check that out. Doesn't that look awesome? Just drop in some fresh spring onions, all right? Just like that. Oh, that is just, oh, it's like, you know. Sorry, I don't know why I did that. It's just when I have no words, I go, That, my friends, is an awesome spare rib with lapchung. All right, so traditionally, these clay pot rice dishes, they are served right in the bowl, like just like that. Mix up my sauce a little bit. Just pour it in. Ooh, check that out. See? Just a perfect amount of sauce for this dish. Check that out, look at the rice. You just mix it up. I'm gonna taste the rice first, because believe it or not, the rice is actually the main ingredient in this dish. Or maybe just a little lapchung too. Wow. The rice is so good, I can just eat that alone. And for the spare rib, good stuff. Really, really good. With the black beans, garlic, and the ginger. Really simple, easy to make, and that's what really good Chinese home cooking is. It's just really simple ingredients. It is quick, and I'm telling you, just really delicious. Try this dish out. As I always say, if you want deliveries, I do make it. I accept Bitcoins and Camels as payment. So I hope to see you all again next time. Oh, by the way, it's almost New Year's. I want to wish everybody a happy New Year, and I hope you all had a wonderful holidays. So thank you very much for joining me as always, and I will see you guys next year. Bye. Man, this is so good, so delicious. For Merry Christmas. Yum, yum, yum. Yum, 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 yum.